And how long have you been in Livingston? Because I had family in Livingston for years, but they
We
may
were
have been
there.
out
We were
there.
there from 1982 to 2005.
Yeah, I think Stanley Lewis, Stanley and Marquita left before that. So
Okay, and when I was a kid growing up in Orange, down in the valley, I never went to Livingston.
Why would you have?
uh,
There was absolutely no reason to go
No.
there.
Not
West Orange was as far up the mountain as I went.
we
absolutely.
lived on Long Island.
Did you say Epis Essen?
No, we didn't say Epicessen.
What's the deli in Livingston?
Nana's Deli. It was on Livingston
Oh.
Avenue.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Well,
West
what's
Orange
there
people
then?
didn't go to Livingston very often.
Yeah, we used to love driving through to Livingston, going to Elizabeth, New Jersey. Phew, what was that smell in Elizabeth?
Standard oil.
It's like in, my favorite line in Miss Congeniality, the movie with Sandra Bullock, where they say, "Why is New Jersey the Garden State? Shouldn't be the oil and petrochemical refinery state." I say with my New Jersey foreign mother.
Well, when I told Judy that we were moving to New Jersey, she said, "Oh," I said, "it's more than the turnpike." And
It is.
so,
Well, Boker Tov to everyone. I'm taking Harvey's role. It's 9:15. We're keeping keeping the trains running on time. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Okay, I love, like, for the last 2 weeks we've had B'nai Mitzvah, and so I haven't been able to see your faces right here during davening and also on Friday night. So it's just nice to be able to see you again on Shabbat morning. So we're gonna be singing a lot. I feel like every Shabbat at Orthodox is Shabbat Shira in some way, but this is extra Shira. So I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Ellen and Jeff, who are going to start us off, help us wake up a little bit this morning with Matovu.
Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov Ohalecha Yaakov Matovu Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov Ohalecha Yaakov Matovu Mishkenotecha Yisrael Mishkenotecha Yisrael Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov Ohalecha Yaakov Matovu.
So before we turn to Birkat HaShachar, I want to sing at the bottom of page 102, Harini Mikabel or Mikabelet Alai Mitzvat Habore Ve'ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha. Take upon myself this mitzvah of the Creator. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I heard the great Ruth Messenger say last week in a conversation about climate change that in this globalized world, the idea of neighbor doesn't mean anything geographic anymore. Everyone, we are all each other's neighbor. We are all in the same boat. So beginning every service with this kavanah, how do we love each other more? How do we take care of each other more? Harini mekabelet alai et mitzvat habore ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha reacha kamocha. Hareini mekabelet alai et mitzvat habore ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha kamocha. Hareini mekabelet alai et mitzvat haborei ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha reacha kamocha. Join me for Birkat HaShachar, page 103. You're invited to rise. Just experience the miracle of this new, bright day ahead of us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sech v'bina le'avchin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani bat chori. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asuri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokach haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten le'ahev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavir shena me'inai upnuma me'afapai. Utnenu hayom v'chol yom l'chleinu chesed al rachamim beinecha u'beinei koroenu v'tikmalenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai el chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Turn to the bracha for Torah study in the top of 107. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichoneka, yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. These are the deeds that yield immediate fruit and continue to yield fruit in time to come. Honoring parents, performing deeds of kindness and love, attending the house of study morning and evening, providing hospitality, visiting the sick, helping the needy bride, attending the dead, probing the meaning of prayer, making peace between one person and another, and between husband and wife and partners. And the study of Torah is the most basic of them all. We turn to Kaddish D'Rabbanan, page 111. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shmei Rabbi. Yamad yivrach yitei yamlich machutei v'chayechon v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael v'agala u'bizman kari. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'elam Ulamei Amaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnasei V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shmei dikudsha b'yichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran v'yama v'imru amen. Al Yisrael v'al Kanan v'al Tamidei Hon v'al Kol Tamidei Hon v'al Kol Man v'eskim v'oraita di v'atra hadain v'di v'hol atar v'atar Yehed Mahon v'chon Shlama Rabba China v'chiska v'rachamin v'chayim arifim u'mezona v'vicha Ufor na min kodam avohon dishmaya v'imru amen. Yehed shama rabba mishamaya v'chayim tovim aleinu ve'kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu berachamav ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'kol Yisrael ve'kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Turn to page 120. Inspired by the line here, Ba'erev Yalin Bechi Ulaboker Rina, my favorite line of this psalm. At night, weeping is abiding, but in the morning there is joy. I wanted to share a poem by, I think, America's new favorite poet, Amanda Gorman, who wrote this poem called The Miracle of Morning almost a year ago when we went into lockdown. And I think it still rings true. I thought I'd awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming. But there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog. Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch fingers her rosaries. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more closely tethered. The question isn't if we can weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend. Like light, we can't be broken, even when we bend. As one, we will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, waiters, schools, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite not in the light, but in lack thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it's our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Do not ignore the pain, give it purpose, use it. Read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From these waves of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also the moments that make us humans kind. Let each morning find us courageous, brought closer, heeding the light before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly, finally seeing, in testing times, we became the best of beings. Hafachta misperi lemacholi, pitachta saki v'tazrei simcha, leman yizamer kakavod v'lo yidom, Adonai Elohai leolam hodaka. Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yirutei, ve'amlich machutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon, Uchaye v'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehe shmei rabba vorach le'olam ulamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kedusha brichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran v'yama v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al Yisrael v'al yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Turn to Baruch She'amar. Again, just the miracle of waking up to this world that is created anew every single morning with love. And I've been, just the last couple of mornings, I've just been looking outside as the sun is rising and seeing so much pink in the sky and seeing so much gorgeousness that I just miss. You just miss when we're like focused on the narrowness of what's the next thing? How do I get to the next place, do the next thing on my list? So maybe if you have a window near you and you want to take a look, it's a little cloudy, it's like a little overcast, not like the brightest and clearest morning, but just noticing whatever your space looks like, noticing what is new, what is appearing new to you each morning. Baruch She'amar v'haya olam. Baruch Hu, Baruch Oseh Bereshit, Baruch Omer v'Yoseh, Baruch Gozer Mekayem, Baruch Merachem al Haaretz, Baruch Merachem al Habriot, Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov L'Reah, Baruch Hayleat V'Kayam Lanetzach, Baruch Bodeh Umatzil, Baruch Shemo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hayalav harachaman mulav b'fiyamo. Yachid Cheolami melech meshubach umporei ad shemo hagadol, Baruch atah Adonai melech mulav b'tishbachot. You can be seated if you're standing. We're going to turn over to Psalm 136, which is on page 132. It's so nice if they aligned the number of the psalm and the page number, but that's just, that's me always just forgetting numbers. So we started singing this psalm to the tune of Az Yashir. And I don't know whoever decided, whoever I learned that minhag, that custom from, to bring in the melody for the Song at the Sea into this song. I think it was very thoughtful, not just because it's a fun and beautiful and upbeat melody, but because, as if you were with us last night, you heard there's a lot of traditions for how the Song at the Sea is sung. Some of the rabbis say that Moses was like a chazan, he was like a prayer leader, and he said the words, and then everyone would repeat after him the line that followed. So it was sort of a call and response, like antiphonal music. And other rabbis say he was actually like a child prayer leader, which is fun to imagine, like kids in the time of the rabbis getting up on the bima. And so it was like a call and response saying the same lines back and forth. But this psalm just has this repeating refrain, Ki leolam chasdo, which everyone can just gather in together. And so before we sing this together, I just want to invite you perhaps just to share one thing that is glorious that you are celebrating this weekend, this morning. Maybe you can share it in the chat, something that feels new, exciting, delightful, something worth saying, yes, Kilei Lam Chasto, yes, hallelujah for this. Maybe as we're singing, you can put this into the chat and share with us. Hodul Adonai Kito, Kileo Olam Chasto. Hoduli Elohei Elohim, Kileo Olam Chasto. Hodul Adonai Adonim, Kileo Olam Chasto. Leoseni Flaut Girolot Levado, Kileo Olam Chasto. Leosei Hashemayim Bipuna, Kileo Olam Chasto. L'roka haaretz al hamayim, Kileo Olam Chasto. Leosei Orim Gidolim, Kileo Olam Chasto. Et Hashemesh lemem shelet bayom, Kileo Olam Chasto. Et hayareach v'kokavim lemem shelot balayla, Kileo Olam Chasto. L'makeh Mitzrayim b'choreihem, Kileo Olam Chasto. Vayotzei Yisrael mitocham, Kileo Olam Chasto. B'yad chazaka v'yizru anituya, Kileo Olam Chasto. Let gozer yam suplik zarim, Kileo Olam Chasto. V'hevir Yisrael b'tocho, Kileo Olam Chasto. V'ni'er paro v'chelo v'yam suf, Kileo Olam Chasto. Limoli chamo bamidbar, Kileo Olam Chasto. Limakei melachim gedolim, Kileo Olam Chasto. V'yaharog melachim adirim, Kileo Olam Chasto. L'sichon melech ha'emori, Kileo Olam Chasto. Uliok melech habashan, Kileo Olam Chasto. V'natan artzam nachala, Kileo Olam Chasto. Nachala leYisrael abdo, Kileo Olam Chasto. Shabishipleinu zachalanu, Kileo Olam Chasto. Vayifrekenu mitzarenu, Kileo Olam Chasto. Notein lechem lecho basar, Kileo Olam Chasto. Hodu liel hashamayim, Kileo Olam Chasto. I'm just looking to see all of the things that everyone shared. Our own psalm, our own song of praise. We're going to turn to Ashrei, More Joy, page 136, and I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Ellen and Jeff.
Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, Oh Hallelujah, Oh Hallelujah. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, Oh Hallelujah, Oh Hallelujah. Tehillah Adonai, medaber pi vivarech kol basar shem kacho leolam vaed v'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata be'adonai. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. I brought a friend with me, not a friend.
We're not friends anymore?
Someone who usually doesn't get up in time, or does get up in time, but isn't quite caffeinated in time by this point of the service to join me.
Generally.
But I needed some help to sing Psalm 148. So we're going to turn over to page 139. You can just join in on the hallelujahs or join in for all these words. We heard this a little bit. Anyone who was at the Tu B'Shvat Seder from Or Nashim the other night, we played this melody. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah, Adonai min hashamayim. Hallelujah, merorim. Hallelujah, kol malachav. Hallelujah, kol tzevahav. Hallelujah, shemesh ve'areach. Hallelujah, kol chochveho. Hallelujah, shemei hashamayim ve'amayim asher me'al hashamayim. Ye hallelujah et shem Adonai ki hu tiva v'nivrahu vayamitem le'alei olam chok natan v'lo yavor. Ye hallelujah et shem Adonai ki hu tiva v'nivrahu vayamitem le'alei olam chok natan v'lo yavor. Hallelujah. 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 141. Hallelujah, Bekocho. Hallelujah, Birki Auzo. Hallelujah, Bigvorotav. Hallelujah, Hero Kulo. Hallelujah, Beteka Shofar. Hallelujah, Beneva Vechinor. Hallelujah, Betoku Machol. Hallelujah, Ben Mini Vehukav. Hallelujah, Betzirtzei Shama. Hallelujah, Betzirtzei Trua. Kolan Shemati, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Kolan Shemati, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Kolan Shemati, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. 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 Baruch Adonai leolam amen ve'amen. Uvaruch shen kvodo leolam v'yimalei kvodo et kol haaretz. Amen ve'amen. Vayivarech David et Adonai lenei kol hakahal ve'omer David. I want to hand things over to my dear friend, Rabbi Ariel Wolpe, who's joining us this morning. Ariel's going to share, I'll let her talk about it, but she's going to share a melody that she wrote inspired by Shirat Hayam based on the verses surrounding Shirat Hayam. So thank you so much, Ariel, for being with us.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Rabbi Lauren, for the invitation to share this song that I'm working on. And some of the words are actually found on page 144, this passage that's been added in Lev Shalem, Vatikach Miriam, Hanivia Achot Aharon et Hatof Beyada. And Miriam took the timbrel in her hand. We translate as timbrel, but we don't really know what kind of drum it was. And I have with me this is called a hand drum that has a bunch of different tones on it, and has this very watery sound. So I thought it was a beautiful bringing together of the drum of Miriam and the water that parted and that we all walk through, beckoned forward by the drum of Miriam, and Kol Nashim Achareha, and all the women after her, the Tupim Uvim Chola, with their timbrels or their drums of different kinds and their dance. So please just take a breath, let yourself fall into this piece, and join in me if you feel so inspired with the words of this chant. And they stood at the water's edge, but they were afraid to walk in. Where can we find the courage from? All these years we've been oppressed. And then a song began. Vatika Miriam Hanivia Achot Aharon et Hatof Beyada. Vatika Miriam Hanivia Achot Aharon et Hatof Beyada. Miriam Hanivia Achot Aharon et Hatof Beyada. Join me, Vatika Miriam Hanivia Achot Aharon et Hatof Beyada. ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה בתופים ובקולות. ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותופי מובים חולות ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותופי מובים חולות ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה try it ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותופי מובים חולות ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה Now just choose a part to sing. Vatika Miriam Hanevia Achot Aharon Etatafiyata Vatika Miriam Hanevia Achot Aharon Etatafiyata ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותופי מובים חולות ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה ותופי מובים חולות ותצאנה כל הנשים אחריה Moving Israel and all the people of Israel halchu v'yavasha. They went into the water. They went on dry land. Moving Israel halchu v'yavasha v'toch hayam in the middle of the sea.
Just imagining ourselves making that crossing, making that journey, the water on either sides of us, but a dry land below, that firmness, feeling both grounded and moving at the same time. We turn to Nishmat on page 145, joining with the breath of all life. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. V'ruach kol basar tiver matir v'omem zichrecha makenu tamid. Thank you so much, Rabbi Ariel. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps, but wakes those who sleep. Supports those who fall, straightens those who are bent over. Were our mouths filled with song as the sea, our tongues to sing endlessly like countless waves, our lips to offer limitless praise like the sky, our eyes to shine like the sun and the moon, our arms to spread heavenward like eagle's wings, and our feet as swift as deer, we would still not be able to fully praise you. נהללך, נשבחך, נברכך, נברך את שם קודשך כאמור. לדוד ברכי נשי את אדוני, v'chol kravai et shem kodsho. Ha'el b'tatzumot uzecha, hagadol b'chot shemecha, hagibor lenetzach v'nora b'norotacha, hamelech hayoshev, al kisera v'nisa. Run 147. This is a melody I sent out before Shabbos yesterday. Hope some of you got a chance to listen to it. Ay, 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 Shochenat Maharom Vikadosh Shemo Shochenat Maharom Vikadosh Shemo Yeshari Titalal Udibre Sadiki Titbarach Shochenat Maharom Vikadosh Shemo Shochenat Maharom Vikadosh Shemo Uvilshon Chasidi Titromam Uvikere Hiroshim Titkadash Shochenat Maharom Vikadosh Shemo Shochenat Maharom Vikadosh Shemo Umakalot Rilavotam Chabeit Yisrael Shekein Chovat Kol HaYitzrim Lifanacha Adonai Eloheinu V'Leavoteinu V'Imotenu Lehodod Lehalel Leshabeach Lifaher Leromem Leder Livarech Leleo Kales Al Kol Divrei Shirot V'Tishbachot David ben Yishai Avdecha Meshicher Yishtabach Shimcha Lahad Malkeinu Berachot ve'odahot me'ata ve'ad olam Baruch atah Adonai HaMelech Gadol b'tishbachot El haodot Adonai niflaot Habocher b'shirei zimra Melech El מלכי העולמים, יתגדל ויקרא שמי רבה, ויעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביום נכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, מעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בימה, ואמרו אמן. Arefu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. I and I yanda da 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 yanda da 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 yanda da Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hayai yotzer uborei choshech osei shalom uborei et hakol Hakol yodu, hakol yishapu, hakol yomeru, ein kadosh kadonai, hakol yomu chaselayo, zerha, kol ha'ela poteach bechol yom deltot sharei mizrach. Uvokeya lo nerakia motzicha ma bimkoma ulivanami mechon shivta umeir leyam kulo. In kirkecha v'in zulatacha, efes piltacha umidomela. In kirkecha Adonai Eloheinu b'olam hazeh, v'in zulatacha makinu l'chei olam haba. Efes piltacha konu lilimot hamashiach, v'yein dom elecha, v'shienu l'tchiat hametim. Run 151. Eladona kol amasim baruch umvurach befiko nishama olo vetuvo malei olam da'atut buna sobevimoto Amikal chayot hakodesh nedar bechavod al merkava zachot umisho Shomim lifnei kivodo, tovim meorot shepara Eloheinu yitzaram, bidat bevina uvaskel koach ukvura natan bahem, liot moshlim bekerev tevel. Leim zivum pikim noga, naher zivam bechol haolam. Smechim b'tzeitam b'sasim b'voam, osim b'yeim haritzon konam. Pe'er v'chavod nodnim lishmot sola verina, l'zither malchuto kara l'shemesh v'yizrach or ra'avahikin surat halvana. Shevach notnim lo kutzeva marom tiferet ukitula srafim v'yofanim v'hayot hakodesh. Le'el asher shavat mikol ha'masim. Tiparak Moshienu Shabbat Masei Yadacha Ve'al Meore Or Shasita Yifaru Chasala Tiparak Tzurenu Makinu V'Go Aleinu Borek Hiroshi Kulam Ahuvim, Kulam Berurim, Kulam Giborim, V'Kulam Hosim Be'ema V'Yura Ritzon Konam V'Kulam Bodchim Epihem Mikdusha V'Torah V'Shira V'Zimra Umbarchim Shavchim U'Parim U'Maritzim U'Makdishim U'Mamlichim Et Shem Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah Kadoshu וכולם מקבלים עליהם מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ונימה קדושה, כולם כאחד, עונים ואומרים ויראה, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים וחיות הקודש, ורעש גדול מנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכח ולנמרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. Turning to Ahava Rabbah on page 154. I want to especially welcome this morning the newest member of the Or Chadash community, little Adam Handelsman, with his parents, Corey and Priscilla. Adam just had his bris on Thursday morning, and we'll be hearing a little bit more about his name during the Torah service, but he looks like he's really enjoying things. So this is just your kavanah for Ahava Rabbah, just taking in the miracle of new life and great love that brings new life into the world. Ahava Rabbah Havtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagedola V'Tera Chamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avur Avoteinu Shebachu B'cha Avinu Makenu, Vatilamdem Chukei Chaim, Kein Tichonenu Tlamdenu, Avinu Ha'av Harachaman, Hamrachem Rachem Aleinu. V'tein b'libenu lehavin, lehavin ulhaskil lishmo, alimod ulelamed, lishmor v'lasot. Ukayam et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha v'ahava. V'ha'erenu v'toratecha v'dahapek libeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yakeh levavenu eyahava u'yirai et shemecha v'lo nevosh Le'olam va'ed, v'lo nevosh, le'olam va'ed, ki b'shem kodshecha hagadol v'anora b'atachnu nagila v'nismecha, nagila v'nismecha b'shua. We gather up our tzitzits.
Now finish your breakfast.
This is just a moment to almost our ritual moments every morning and every Shabbos to imagine that day when we too will all gather again together in the same place, and also celebrating the miracle that is allowing us to still gather in this way right now from all of the four corners of everywhere where we are inhabiting. V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiut le'artzeinu. Ki el poel Yeshuotata ubanu v'acharta mikolam v'lashon v'kiraftanu l'shimcha gadol selah v'emet lehodot lecha. U'yachecha, u'yachecha, b'yava. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'yamo Yisrael, b'yava. For Shema, invite anyone who feels comfortable to unmute yourself so we can hear your voices joining together in oneness. Shema
Adonai
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha b'derech Ushokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leod al yadacha, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתרתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. והיה אם שמוע תשמעו אל מצוותיי. ויאמר אדוני המשה לאמור דבר על בני ישראל ואמרת להם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וריתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים ללכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמן. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וכי שונאך ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלינו ולאבי אבותינו ואמותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואל אבותינו ואמותינו יוצרנו צור ישועתנו הודינו ומצילנו מעולם שמך אין אלוהים זולתך עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו אתה הוא מעולם. Turn to page 158. In a moment, I'll hand it over to Ellen and Jeff to lead us in Mi Chamocha. There are certain parts of our story as a Jewish people that we weave into prayer, that we weave into liturgy, not just every week, but every single day, actually twice every single day. And the Exodus, and particularly the moment of crossing through the sea, this is one of them. And I mentioned this last week, but I want to bring it back in again because this is not just about remembering something that happened to our ancestors long, long ago, whether we believe in the historical veracity that this event happened in history at a particular time in a particular place, or even that something miraculous happened that we can't even put words to, but something so powerful and so liberating happened in our great myth with a capital M of how we came together as a people. Not just that it happened long ago in some historical time, but that idea that liberation is happening for us too. Every day, the possibility of liberation, the possibility of becoming a little bit more free from whatever is holding us back is still there. And we have that little kernel of potential freedom inside of us. And so we try to sing this for the sake of remembering, what does it feel like? Even if I don't feel free, even if all I feel right now is stuckness and my wheels getting locked in the mud, just like the chariots of Pharaoh did in the middle of the sea, is it possible to imagine that I could be free, that I could be a little bit more open, a little bit more surrounded in possibility than I am right now? And so to take us there in the groundedness of this classic melody, this is the Mi Chamocha of my childhood. I hand it over to Rabbi Ellen and Jeff.
Yam bam bam bim bidi bam, yada bam bim bam. Yam bam bam bim bidi bam, yada bam bim bam. Yai dai 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 dai, yada bam bim bam. Yai dai 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 dai, yada bam bam. Mi chamocha baili Madonna, mi chamocha nedar bakodesh. No ratihilot, oh sefela, no ratihilot, oh sefela. Shira chadasha, shibechu geulim. Shira chadasha, shibechu geulim. L'simcha, l'simcha, al sfat hayam. L'simcha, l'simcha, al sfat hayam. Yachad kulam, hodu v'hilichu. Yachad kulam, hodu v'hilichu. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yam yada bidibam, yada ba bim bam. Yam ba yam bidibam, yada ba bim bam. Ay yada yada bim bam. Ay yada bim bam.
Sur Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdeichinu Mecha Yehuda Be'Yisrael. Go Aleinu Adonai Tzavot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Begin the Amidah together on page 159 and continue through the end of the Kedusha. You're welcome to find another spot if you like away from your screen to just carve out a little space for your own personal time, whether you want to use the words here in the Siddur or whether you want to just take this time for your own thoughts and reflections. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloheinu b'Imoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot Umevi Goel Ibnei Bneihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Choker Moshiach U'Nagim Baruch atah Adonai Magin Avraham U'Choker Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayim Itimata Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Marich HaGashem Mitchakel Chaim V'Chesed Michayim Eitim V'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rotech Olim U'Matir Asurim U'Mekayem Emunato V'Shenei Achar V'Chamocha B'Gevurot U'Mito Melech Melech Meimit U'Mechayeh U'Matzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'eman atah l'chayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Michayei hametim Mikarish et shimcha ba'olam Ki Hashem shemarti shemot b'shnei marom Hakatuv b'yamidiacha V'karaza el zeh v'yamar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot, Melech kol haaretz kivvodo. Asbiko rash gadol, lavdei v'chazak mashmi'im kol, nitnasim le'mat serafim, le'matan baruch yomeru. Baruch kivvod Adonai mimkomo. B'tov Yerushalayim Yircha L'dor Ba'ador Nitzach Nitzachim Yadayim Beinenu Tirayna Malchutacha Hadavar Amor Shirei Uzacha Al Yedei Ta'avi Mashiach Tzidkaka Nimlo Karnai Le'olam Melachayim Tzihon L'dor Vador Hallelujah L'dor Vador Nagid Kodlecha Kulini Taki Taki Tushatcha Nakdish V'shifra Kaleinu Yifinu Le'mosh Le'olam Ba'el V'yamelech Eloh Kadosh Ata Baruch Ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Say shalom b'romav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, amen. Yitkaral v'yikara shemei Rabbah, ve'alma tivrach yirteh v'yamlich machluteh, v'chayechonu v'yomechon, v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, v'galav yisman kariv v'yimeru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'olam u'lo me'almaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brihu leila mikol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiran b'yama v'yimeru amen. Tikabal tzloton v'archon d'chol Yisrael Odamahon Dibishmaya Bimeru. Amen. Yehesh Lamarava Minshmaya, the Hayim Alena Velkoisra Bimeru. Amen. Oh, say shalom, Bimomav. We are say shalom. Alina Velko Israel, Velko Yeshvete Val, Veyimeru. Amen. Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom. I'm just looking up to see who all is here on this glorious Shabbos morning. It's great to see all of you, whether you are on camera and with us or off camera and also with us or off camera and grabbing a snack. All of that is perfect. You're here, which is exactly wonderful. So we are going to take out the Torah and study together and learn together and celebrate together this morning on this Shabbat Shira. And so you're invited in a moment to rise and join me and imagine yourself here in this space as I wish you all were. It's too quiet. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai v'ein kemahasecha Malchutecha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam vaed. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim hitiv avirtzonecha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki b'cha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Vayehi binso Aharon, vayomer Moshe, Uma Adonai, v'yakutzu oivecha, v'yanusu misanecha, v'panecha. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udevar Adonai v'Yerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael v'kedushato. Ve'anaraketz ve'lishmei karisha, karisha yakiva, anahimar tushbechan, ve'anaraketz, ve'anaraketz, ve'lishmei karisha, karisha yakiva, anahimar tushbechan, yehirava kohutava, detiv tachli v'vioraita, v'tashlim mishalin, ליבי וליבד חודמה ישראל לקבולתי ולשלם So here I want to invite you to unmute if you're comfortable and repeat the Shema after me. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Eloheinu Kadosh Shemo.
Adonai All right, you can be seated if you're standing. Shabbat Shalom once again. Oh, Yael, you got your Torah. Yes, yes. Somebody spotlight Yael so we can see her. Oh, if you find her, I'll do it. Yes, Yael. Okay, Yael is so ready for the Torah procession. Amazing. All right, let me get situated. Okay. So this morning, as has already been amped up and built up, we are chanting, you're hearing chanted Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea. And we're going to continue, if you were with us last night, we're going to continue this question that was sort of posed and begun to, the question that we began to explore together, which is really this question of how do we sing in moments of struggle? How do we find ways to celebrate all along the way? Like we learned last night, if you're with us, that Miriam perhaps is the example of finding ways to sing even in the midst of the moment when she knows suffering is around just the next corner. And Moses is perhaps the model of looking forward to the perfected future. And while we need both of those, perhaps we really need to channel some of Miriam's wisdom here. And so we're going to look at this text together and hear it chanted and chant it along with our Miriam. I don't know if that was coincidence or by design, but Miriam Nadler is going to chant Shirat Hayam for us this morning. And as we're exploring both the verses leading up to the shir and also the song itself, I want us to try to come to it with new eyes, especially those of you for whom this feels very familiar and it feels like, oh yeah, I know this story. I can tell this story without looking at a text. I have it inside my bones. To look at it anew and then try to really inhabit, what do we think it was that was actually propelling and compelling the Israelites to sing this song? What was their state of mind? What was their state of heart at the time that brought them to be able to sing? Before we look at the text though itself, I want to sort of ground us in our own experience. And I want to just ask this question and then just take a moment to sit with it and think. How has song or music carried you through moments of suffering or struggle? Can you think of a particular example or a time, doesn't have to be from this last year, could be any time from your life, when song or music has been a way for you to connect, a support in a difficult time? So just take a moment, think to yourself, then I'll invite just a few folks to share. Okay. If you have a memory, you can raise your actual hand or your Zoom hand, and I'll find you and call on you. Jean.
Hatikva.
Say more, say more.
1948, May 6th, the creation of the State of Israel.
I know, especially hearing those words and even hearing that melody that we sing in at the end of Ahava Rabbah. We talked today about Kibbutz Galuyot, gathering all of us exiles, but historically, Kibbutz Galuyot, remembering all of the exiles coming to Eretz Israel and the newborn state of Israel. I mean, that melody, I think this is the power of song in so many ways. I was talking to my mom about this morning, it just like transports you back to where you were at that exact moment, to relive that moment in a real, incredibly powerful way. Stacy.
Well, for me, it's more recent. My mother is suffering from severe dementia. And the only way we can get a response from her usually is to play music for her over the computer. And primarily Shirley Temple songs make her perk up and takes her back to remembering those melodies and those songs. So that's really the only way I communicate with her now is through music, old Yiddish songs and old movie songs. It's very bittersweet. Now when I listen
Yes. Yes. You find, and this is so common when people have lost their ability to, to access memory in any other way, that song is the only force that I remember. Is she here? My dear teacher, Rabbi Michal Springer, who is joining us today and will be installing me tonight. I had the privilege of getting to know Michal's parents when we were in New York together, when Michal worked at JTS. And when her mom was toward the end of her life, I remember, I hope I remember this correctly, that her mom was saying Kaddish for her husband, Michal's father, and those were some of the only memories, like that connection to Kaddish, just being able to sing and chant these words. I was so alive. Michal, do you remember that?
Thanks, Lauren. That's so sweet. Kaddish, and actually also parts of the liturgy that especially the paragraph from the Amidah that's connected to Shabbat, she would say all the time. It was like her total mantra. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just remembered that. Okay, so maybe one more, and if you have others, we'll bring them back in after we do the Torah reading, but I think I saw one more hand. Peggy, is that a hand? Yes. Yeah.
So it's much more individual is the word I want. My family changed synagogues when I was 8 years old. And I remember having to go, very reform, very, very reform, having to go to Sunday school by myself at this new synagogue and not knowing anybody and being 8 years old. And they sang the same concluding hymn at the end of the service, which it's we meet again in gladness. I don't know, maybe Rabbi Ellen knows it. I never hear it in the conservative movement. But I knew I was home. It was wonderful.
I know a lot of us probably have memories like that one tune that takes you back. Okay, our last one really, because now I see your hand, is Ann Davis. You have your Zoom hand up.
Oh, so many memories, but for me, it usually helps me to feel good, but I remember the first year after my mom died, and they sang Adon Olam to the tune of Ma'atzur, and I just started crying. I felt so sad. And that first year was so hard, but I also find music is a great pain reliever.
Yeah, I think I've just had so many moments where there's something emotion that feels sort of stuck, and I can't express it, but it needs to come out, and then through singing or usually it's like hearing something sort of allows whatever that pain is to be released and transformed in some kind of almost magical way.
But there's a science behind it too, in terms of the beat and the rhythm that can really help you accomplish whatever it is you want, whether it's walking or exercise or just relaxing.
So I really want us to keep this in mind, actually, as we're thinking about Shirat Hayam, because the Israelites were having this embodied experience of coming up to the edge of the water. And I mean, so many midrashim about who jumped in first, and were they racing to the water's edge or were they holding themselves back? But how a song could support them as they were walking through themselves and once they got to the other side. And where you notice perhaps some connection with them along the way. Okay, so Tachlis, we are reading 3 aliyot. Okay, by the way, thank you for all of those memories. Those were really beautiful and I think set the tone well. We're going to be reading 3 aliyot this morning, culminating in Shirat Hayam. And so I had tried to rig it so I could have the Sefer Torah here and read from the actual Sefer Torah, but it's too complicated with the screen. So I'm going to be reading from the Chumash, but I'll be chanting the first one. Hand it over to our Gabbai. Is this Robin? Yes.
Yes. Ve'ya'azov yagin l'shir l'chol chosim ba v'namar Amen. Hakol avo g'dol Eloheinu v'tanu kavod l'Torah hakavod harav lior Rivka bat Micha v'Michael v'Yoel Chaim ben Gedaliah v'Malcha la'aliyah rishona Baruch shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael b'kedushato V'yatem advarim b'Adonai Elohechem chayim kulchem hayom.
Before we say the bracha, I just want to show you the yad that I use when I read Torah is a really special gift that my parents gave me right around the time of my ordination. I'll hold it as close as I can. It's a fusion of 2 different pieces of silver from the 2 sides of my family. The part with the yad itself has a CK for my great grandmother Clara Katz. This was silver from her collection, and then the back half is from a knife from my grandmother's silver on the other side. And so for me, this was incredibly special to be able to bring together all of the parts of myself and my family into one ritual that I use as much as possible. Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, ma titzak elai, daber el bnei Israel, vayisa'u, ve'ata harem et matecha, uneteh et yadecha al hayam ubeka'ehu, vayavohu bnei Israel, b'til hayam v'yabasha, va'ani הנני מחזק את לב מצרים ויבואו אחריהם בקפתה בפרעה בכל חילו ברכבו ובפרשיו וידעו מצרים כי אני אדוני והכבדי בפרעה ברכבו ובפרשיו ויישא מלאך אלוהים ההולך לפני מחנה ישראל וילך מאחריהם, ויישא עמוד הענן מפניהם, ויעמוד מאחריהם, ויבוא בין מחנה מצרים ובין מחנה ישראל, ויהי הענן והחושך, ויאר את הלילה, ולא קרב זה את זה אל זה כל הלילה. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod Chaim ben Shevach ve'ahava bat Sarah v'Avram l'aliyah shniya.
Before we recite the second aliyah, I want to just look at the text that I just read. It's coming a little bit in the midst of in the midst of the narrative, where right before this aliyah, most of the Israelites are terrified, and they say this is real evidence of a lot of snark, I think, in the Torah. They say, was it not for want of graves in Egypt that you brought us to die in the wilderness? I mean, it's snark coming from a place of terror, where they say, why did you take us out of Egypt? We're gonna die here in the wilderness. And Moses' response at first, seems to be one of faith. This is in verse 13. He says, have no fear, stand by. God is going to work miracles for you today. God will battle for you. You hold your peace. And then God, you would think God's response here would be, thanks, Moses, for the lift up here. And God says, Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. So I wondered, as we were reading, if there's anyone that has an interpretation of this verse. Why is God saying to Moses, stop crying out, just tell them they all need to go forward? How do you read this?
I think God's telling Moses to be the leader he's supposed to be. It's time to take action.
Right. There's a time for crying out, but actually, they just need a swift push to the back. Just nudge. Don't tell them to stand back. Actually, tell them to move forward. Any other thoughts anyone wants to share?
It sounds like a parent telling their child, stop whining already and get it done.
Right. And that's the real, sometimes I feel like Moses' response would have been exactly the right response, but perhaps in this situation, at this particular time when things are, this is on Amy and my podcast that we recorded earlier this week, we were talking about how this moment must have been so chaotic with so much stuff swirling, and the chariots and the horses clopping behind them at their backs. They just needed some direction.
I think it also shows us that Moses is a human being. shows another us. Remember, he's just a human being faced with a huge task.
Yes.
And he can be intimidated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I find that so compelling to be in his walking in his footsteps. Okay, so we're going to turn to the second Aliyah now, to Corey and Priscilla, and to Renette, who's chanting Torah for us. So Corey and Priscilla, whenever you're ready, you can chant the bracha before the Aliyah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavrach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayet Moshe et yadav vayam. Vayelech Adonai et hayam. Baruch kadim azeh kol halayla. Vayasem et hayam lecharva. Vayivkeu hamayim. Vayavo bnei Yisrael. B'toch hayam vayavasha. V'hamayim lahem choma. מימינם ושמאלם, וירדפו מצרים, ויבואו אחריהם, כל סוס פרעה, ויכבו בפרשה, ואל תוך הים, ויהי באשמרת הבוקר, וישקוף אדוני את מחנה מצרים, בעמוד אש וענן, ויהם עם מחנה מצרים, ויסר את אופן מרחבתו, וינהגהו בכבדות, ויאמר מצרים, אנוסה בפני ישראל, כי אדוני נלחם להם במצרים.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Natan B'chotenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. So I mentioned earlier that we have welcomed new life into this world, Corey and Priscilla's son. And so I want to offer them a special Misha Berach, and then they're going to tell us a little bit about his name.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's perfect. And we can see him too.
All right. So we, it was simple. I mean, the two people we remember when we named my son Yaad, and my grandfather, who passed away around 21 years ago, and Priscilla's grandfather, who unfortunately actually passed away recently. My grandfather's Hebrew name is Yehetzkel, and we wanted to not give him the exact name. We want him to kind of go his own way, but in remembering him, we wanted to use the Yud. And so we looked through Yud names, and my father actually saw Yaad and recommended it, and I never heard of it. And I've seen different interpretations, one being purpose, the other to gather, or to, and so we thought it was beautiful, and Yaad was very similar to Adam, and so we chose it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I want to offer all three of you this bracha.
Thank you.
Misha Berach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarivka Rachel v'Leah hu yivarach et Chaim ben Shevach ve'Ahava bat Sarah v'Avraham v'et banam shenolad lahem ve'yikra shemo b'Yisrael Yaad ben Chaim ve'Ahava Yisku avi ve'imo legadlo l'Torah u'lechopalu masim tovim lochma v'dahat Adonai li'ahavat chesed ulirat shamayim. Ana Adonai ten lo tevuna lakir et hatov, va'amitzat lev lavor et nisyonot hachayim, liot doresh tzedek v'rodav shalom, hatzilo mikol nega umachala, barech et yaad v'nitvarech kulanu bo, v'nizkech kulanu lismoch be'or panav, zeh hakatan gadol yiyeh, v'nomar Amen. May the one who blessed all of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Corey and Priscilla, these new parents, and their new son. His name in English is Adam. His name in Hebrew is Yaad ben Chaim ve'ahava. May his parents merit the ability to raise him to a life of Torah, of wisdom, of chuppah, of loving relationships and good deeds, ma'asim tovim, with wisdom and knowledge of the oneness that we are all a part of, the love of kindness and reverence. Give him insight to recognize the good and courage to withstand all of life's challenges that are going to be thrown his way, the courage to seek justice and pursue peace. Protect him, keep him safe and healthy, and let him be a blessing to all of us too. And we all say, Amen. Simen tohu, mazel tohu, mazel tohu, simen tohu, simen tohu, mazel tohu, mazel tohu, simen tohu, mazel tohu, mazel tohu, simen tohu, Yehilanu, 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 Udecha Yisrael, Yehilanu, Yehilanu, Udecha Yisrael, Yehilanu, Yehilanu, Udecha Yisrael, Yehilanu, Yehilanu, Udecha Yisrael. Mazal tov. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. Oh, now we woke him up. Oh no, he's pretty chill. Okay, good. Yes, and as has been told to me, all crying babies are so, like, bring them all forward. We love the crying babies at Or Hadash. So even though now it's very quiet and everyone can get muted very quickly, I'm longing for the day when we can't mute any kids and they're just all here. Okay. I'm gonna sing Misha Berach, offer this prayer for healing for all who are sick in our community and beyond. And so invite you to share names of people that you're praying for this morning in the chat, or unmute and you can share aloud too. Misheberach Avotenu Mikor Habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mikor Habracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Wishing all of them a refuah shlema, a full healing. So we turn now to our third and final aliyah. We're going to hear Shirat Hayam chanted. I've mentioned there are many different traditions for how this is chanted in different communities. And so in this Zoom version of chanting Shirat Hayam, Miriam is going to chant and everyone else will stay muted, but invite you as much as you can to chant along with her, to try to embody the experience of the Israelites who sang all in unison. And this new midrash, it's not new, old midrash, but new to me, that I just love, where every single person was singing, even the babies that were there that had not yet been born were singing their songs. And I imagine, you know, like friends of mine who have been playing music for their babies before they're born can like feel, you know, when the baby's sort of in the rhythm in the womb, often you can tell like, oh, this baby is really responding to music. So this midrash doesn't seem so outlandish to me. So we're going to do this as a group aliyah this morning. And I want to invite anyone for whom music has played a central role in your life to join in and say the blessing for this aliyah. So this could be in a formal way, whether you played in some kind of ensemble or sang in a choir, or played music as a child, or whether you just love singing in the shower and that is part of your spiritual practice, or you sing in the car. Anyone for whom music is a central part of who you are. Invite you to rise and say the blessing. And I know this is true for Marcy Abrams Feinstein. And so Marcy, I'm going to invite you to be our ambassador and say the blessing out loud.
Okay. Baruch hu Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayomer Moshe tek yadecha al hayam vayeshivu hamayim hamitzrayim al rechovo ve'al parashav. Vayet Moshe et yado al hayam asher hayam lifnot boker etano u'mitzrayim misimkato. Vayena'er Adonai et Mitzrayim betoch hayam. Vayeshivu hamayim v'yichasu et harechav et haparashim v'chol chayei paro habayim achreihem bayam v'nishar bahem ad echad u'bnei Yisrael halchu b'yabasha betoch hayam v'hamayim lachem choma miminam v'mismamam. V'yashadonai bayom hahu et Yisrael miyad Mitzrayim v'yor Yisrael et Mitzrayim me'et al sfat hayam. Yor Yisrael et hayad hagdolah asher asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim vayeru ha'am Adonai vayaminu b'Adonai v'Moshe avdo. Az yasher Moshe b'nei Yisrael et hashirat hazot l'Adonai vayomru v'emor hashir al Adonai ki bo ba'af v'zverach bo rama bayam ozi v'zimrat yav v'hi lishua zeh livan behu Elohei aviv v'yamenehu. Adonai ish nechama, Adonai shemo, Merkava paro chelo yara bayam. Umichbar shlishav tibe'u bayam suf, Tehamo yechasena, Yardu b'tzumo kemo aven, In Adonai midori b'koach, In Adonai tirat zayev, V'verach kocha taras kamecha, תשכנך יוכל מקרש, וברוח אפיך נעמלו מים, וכמו נעד נוזים, כפות תעמוד בלב ים. אמר אויב, ארדוף עשי, והלך שלום, תמלאנו נפשי, רק הרבי, תמרשנו ידי, נמשל בהלכך, כנסנו ים, צללו כפות במים אדירים. מי כמוך בערים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. נעתית ימינך תבענו ארץ, נעתית בחסדך על זרועותיך, נחלת בעוזך על נווה קודשך. שמעו עמים יבזון, חיו לך אז יושבי פלשת, אז נפלו ולפי אדום, אלי מואב יוחזינו רעד, נקנו כל יושבי כנען, תיפול עליהם אימתה ופחד, יגדול זרעך ידמו כאבן, עד עבור עמך אדוני, עד עבור עמזו קנית, תביאנו ותיטענו בכל מחלתך, מחול משיחך, פעלת אדוני, קודשך אדוני, כוננו ידך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, כי בא סוס פרעה ברכבו פרשת בים, וישב אדוני עליהם את מי הים, ובני ישראל הלכו ביבשה בתוך הים. תיקח מרים הנביאה אחות אהרון את הטוב בידה, ותצאן כל הנשים אחריה בטובים במלכולות. ותען לכם מרים, שירו לאדוני כי לא גאה, סוס ורוכבו רמה בים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yishar kochachem, yishar koch to Miriam, and to all of us, to all of you. So I want to talk about this song. I think this is this is just my experience, but I find when I think about this song through the words of the song, I find it rather hard to connect to. Perhaps because my image of God doesn't involve the warrior God and the image of the fighter God. Although something Amy and I were talking about earlier in the week is that there are so many people throughout history and now for whom having a warrior God, having a God who is powerful and can fight your battles and win and be victorious is perhaps exactly what they're in need of. But for me, it's a hard image to really connect to. And so I want to come back to this question from earlier. When you imagine, Moses and Miriam and the Israelites all singing this song, what do you imagine their state of mind and their state of heart is? What do you connect to in this that you feel like, oh yeah, I could see myself there. I could imagine what they were feeling. I could empathize.
I don't know. For me, this has always also been troubling because there's the battle part instead of praise. I love the Oz part. That Oz Vizimrat is there because it really shows just joy, and I hate the negative aspect that's in the song. And I think that's why sometimes Orchadash has not said this during Daily Minyan, because it's got the pluses, but it also has the negatives. And, and it's also because during Pesach for Hallel, we don't say the full Hallel because people died in this crossing. So we tend not to be totally exuberant during that time, but we want a little, reality check. We're happy, but we have a little reality check.
Yeah, I think it puts us in such a complex emotional place of you're right, it's not total exuberance with abandon, but this muted kind of joy, or a joy that feels a little regret as part of it. It's a complex emotion, I think. Others. Anne, yeah.
Well, we have to be grateful for our veterans who are willing to fight. That's the other reality.
Yeah, I think there's I want to hear this song interpreted by people who have experienced battle firsthand, who have actually experienced what it is like to have tanks or chariots or drones, or any kind of that in the heat of battle, because I think I see this and I recognize, oh, this is not my experience. I have no idea what this must have been like, but I don't know. I'm curious for any of you who have experienced, any of our veterans here, anyone who has experienced battle in this way or anything like it, care to comment? Mark, I see you here.
Yeah, I'm not a veteran, but I remember first hearing this and really focusing on it right before the 6-Day War, and afterwards. And it wasn't very meaningful before, but afterwards it was exceedingly meaningful. And I think that because the buildup of the 6-Day War, for those of you who don't actually remember it, of which probably a fair number, was there's, real doubt whether Israel is going to exist. So less than 25 years after the Holocaust, we're facing annihilation of 3 million more Jews. And then the victory of the 6-Day War. And I remember a friend of mine, a young rabbi at the time, who said, I never understood the words Adonai Ish Milchama before that event. And so I think you are right to sort of ask people who have experienced war, and I didn't experience that war except vicariously, but I do remember the feeling that when I said this prayer after the victory in the 6-Day War, it had complete different meaning. That yes, sometimes God acts through acts of violence in order for a better good. And I can imagine, to use another example, what the those who were in concentration camps felt when they saw, the U.S. Army or the Soviet Army liberate them. Whether they thought, wow, here's an army that has come to liberate us, and maybe Adonai Ish Milchama, maybe God then works through systems or organizations of war.
So thank you so much for that. And I think the question that it leads me to is, for those of us who, God willing, will never experience what it is like to be in the midst of war, what does it mean to recite this song? What does it mean to have this as part of our daily liturgy? Like Robin said, is this a divine attribute? Because I guess when we think about it as a prayer, some of the aspect of this prayer is trying to take on some of those qualities of God, to sort of see in ourselves that warrior spirit, or that strength and might. But for those of us who may really say, this is who I am, and this is not, you know, my hope for the world is a world of no war. What do we do with this? Do we still continue to say it? Do we find one line that we can say with integrity? How do we find ourselves in this song? That may be more of a rhetorical question, but if there's anyone that wants to comment on that, we'll start to bring this to a close. Yes, Ronit.
I see it a little differently. It's true that but it's true that when your enemy falls, you should not rejoice. But it's also true that when someone comes to kill you, you have to get up early, especially early in the morning, and kill them. We cannot take our 21st century ethics and Geneva Convention rules to 2,000 years ago. Those wars were not just kill or be killed. They would annihilate whole cities, women, children, sometimes even the donkeys and the horses. If you didn't kill, you would not survive. So it was just a war for survival. I don't see it in our moralistic the 21st century.
Yeah, and I think getting into that mentality of like, what would it actually have been like to be fighting? I mean, I think some of us know that more directly than others, but for those of us who have not experienced that directly, that existential threat to our own existence, it's hard. It's hard for us to connect to this, and it's hard for us. And I think maybe to sort of begin to wrap this, actually went in a different direction than I thought, but I think it's really fascinating. You know, this is one of those pieces of liturgy that sort of helps me build empathy with a person an entity that is so hard for me to recognize. You know, someone that has experienced this kind of existential threat. How do I see myself in them, and how do I begin to sort of to empathize with that experience in a direct way? And I think that's some of what our liturgy is trying to do, is be expansive about the people in our community, the people in our world, the historical experiences of Jews throughout the millennia, and to realize like this is all of us. It's not just, you know, the pacifists versus the militarists. It's and everybody in between. It's all of us. So when we feel that tension, that's a little bit by design. Maybe, oh, now I got some hands. All right, Barbara and Paul.
I read this and am grateful that it reminds us that as human beings, we don't stand alone. The animals stand with us.
Can you say maybe one more sentence about what you mean by that?
Well, that we rely on the strength of the horses in order to be able to survive an attack. And the ingenuity of the chariots. I mean, it's not just the individual, it's the community and the larger community, not just the human community, but the whole community.
I think I didn't even think about that too, but that sort of gets back to like.
That's what one of the pieces of the liturgy on the weekday service that I adore, because it reminds us that we're part of this big ecosystem.
Yes, and this isn't just about, I think this is a message for our time too. This isn't just about a human versus human existential battle. This is much larger and much grander. Right. Maybe as we get closer to Pesach, one of the things I want to explore with you is, you know, a teaching that has really impacted me by Rabbi Shai Held, who sees the story of the Exodus not just as the liberation story of one nation, our people, but actually as a much more cosmic narrative of the forces of goodness and order triumphing over the forces of chaos and oppression. really linking it to the entire creation story, not just the story of one people. So it's a really fascinating take, and you can see, if you look closely, a lot of the threads of creation in the story of Exodus itself, but we'll come back to that in a couple of months. I just want to pull in a few of the comments from the chat. It may be naive, but I need my God to be a pacifist. And we continue to exist because of that history that Ronit led us to. So, and that mission to reconcile is always with us. Is there anyone that wanted to say something that I didn't get to? Jean, okay. Jean, I'll let you have the last word.
There are all kinds of wars. There's a physical war, but there are also a war of words and politics, and we also all have wars inside of us. There was a war going on with the people coming out of Egypt inside. Which direction were they going? So we shouldn't only focus on physical wars, but the other kinds of wars that are out there also.
Thank you, and that can make this perhaps resonate in a different way. And what it makes me think of is, can we imagine realities that are not zero sum, that are not one side wins, the other side loses, but realities of success that look like all sides thriving? Maybe that is naive. Maybe that is, maybe that is impossible. But that's where my imagination often takes me in these conversations. So thank you, everybody. I'll just bring us to back to this question of song. I think I'm still figuring out my own take on this, but what I'm sort of weaving in from this conversation is that it is that existential fear that so often pushes us to sing. And this is sort of the Min HaMeitzar that I was talking about and singing about last night. When you're squeezed, when you're in that narrow place, that's sort of like this, I'm imagining the song being squeezed out of us. Like we just have to sing for pure survival. It is a survival mechanism. And so I invite you to think about, for the rest of today and onward, how song has done this for you, how song has enabled you to survive and to express yourself, maybe when words fail. So we're going to turn and put the Torah away, and then go into Musaf. So I invite you to turn with me to page 183. Yehalilu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodol al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren liyamo, teila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah, mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, havu l'Adonai kavod v'hoz, havu l'Adonai kivod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai b'har hakodesh. Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai b'hakoach, Kol Adonai b'hadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et al ze halvanon.
ויקדם כמו עגל, לבנון בסריון, כמו בין רעמים. קול אדוני חוצב להבות אש, קול אדוני יחיל מדבר, יחקיל אדוני מדבר קדש. קול אדוני יחולל איילות, ויחשף יערות, ובהיכלו כולו מרכבות. אדוני למבול ירש, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. וברכו יאמר נתתי לכם תורתי, אל תעזבו את האימי, למחזיקים בה ותומכה, ויושר תיראה דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, הרישמנו All right, so we have a special treat this morning, a little different take on Musaf. We're going to have two options. Traditional Musaf is going to be happening here in the main space led by Ben Nadler. And an alternative Musaf experience is going to be led in a breakout room by Rabbi Ellen Nemhauser. And so if you're on a computer screen, you should see if you move your cursor all the way to the bottom where it says breakout rooms, you should see an option to go into a room that says Alt Musaf. Great, and I see one person already went in there, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna take about 10 minutes for Musaf, and then we'll come back together for Aleinu and Mourner's Kaddish. So you can pick your room, and then we'll come back together shortly.
I can't seem to go to the breakout room unless this is it.
No, are you still here, Ellen?
Yeah, I'm.
Yep. If you go to the bottom, do you see, what do you see on your screen?
Some computers don't have the breakout, so you may need to put it in the chat.
Maybe I can move you manually, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna put you in there, Ellen.
Got it.
Okay, Ben, I think you can start with Chatzi Kaddish whenever you are ready.
I am ready. Okay. Yikada v'yikada shemei rabba ve'alma divra kirtei ve'amlith malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho be'Yisrael bagala u'vizman kariv v'meru amen Yehi shmei rabba mevorach Le'olam le'ol me'omaya yiparach v'yishtabach v'poar v'tromam v'naseh Vidadar, Vitale, Vitala, Sheme de Kudisha, Borichu, Leila, Min Koberchata Veshirata, Tushbechata Venechemata, Dami Ran Be'alma, Vimeru, Amen. Anana na 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 Adonai. Anana na 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 Svatai Tiftach. Anana na 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 Ufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer chasadim tovim v'konei hakol v'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot umevi goel livnei v'neihem leman shemo b'ahavav melech ozer ufoked umoshia umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham ufoked Sarah Atagibor leolam Adonai mechaye metim atarav leoshia mashiv haruach umorid hagashem mechakel chayim bechesed mechaye metim berachamim rabim somech noflim verofech olim umatir asurim umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bal Gevurot Umidom Elach Melech Memihit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua Veneman Atalachayod Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye HaMeitim Naritzecha v'nakdishcha kesod siach sarfei kodesh hamakdishim shimcha bakodesh kakatuv al yad nevi'echa v'kara zel zevi'amar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivahot, Meloch ol haaretz kivodo. Kivodo malei olam, Meshartav shoalim ze lazeh, Aye mekom kivodo, Lumatam baruch yomeru, Baruch kivod Adonai, Min komo. Min komo hu yifen verachamim v'yachonam ham yachadim shemo erev al boker v'chol yom tamid pamayim be'ava shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Hu Eloheinu Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, Vehu Yashmienu, Verachamav Sheni, Lehinei Kol Chai, Liot Lachem Le'Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. U'v'divrei kodshecha katuv lemor, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, Ledor vador, Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid gadlecha, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. אתה קדוש ושמך הקדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. תיקנת שבת רצית כברנותיה, צבי פירושי עם סידורי נסחיה, ועניה לעולם כבוד ינחלו, תומי החיים זכו, וגם אהובים דבריה גדלו בחירו, אז ניסינו ניצבו עליה. Lost my place. שיב בנים גאלו שתעלו בשמך לארצנו ותיתנו בגבולנו שהשם עשו אבותינו לפניך את קורבנותיהם תמידים כסדרים ומוספים כהלכתם ואת מוסף יום השבת הזה עשו והקריבו לפניך באהבה כמצוות רצונך ככתוב בתורתך על ידי משה עבדך מפי כבודך כאמור. יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו שתוליכנו לארצנו ותיתנו בגבולנו באמתנו בשלום ברננה וכל שמחה מלאים אחווה ואהבתה. נהלך יחד באור פניך ונחד כולנו בצדק ובמשפט וחסד וברחמים, וכן כתוב על יד נביאך, לא יראו, לא ישמחו בכל הר קדשי, כי מלא הארץ גאה את אדוני כמים לים מכסים, והיה לך אדוני לאור עולם ואלוהיך להתארך. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי 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 שביעי שבת כולם יספהו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת קוראי עונג שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו רצה במנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך סבנו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך Ata Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'Amcha Yisrael tfilatam v'hoshev et avodah le'vir beitecha tfilatam be'ava tekabel b'ratzon v'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael lamecha v'techez enayneinu b'shuvcha l'tzion b'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato l'tzion Modim anachnu lach. Atov ki lachav chalu rachamecha ve'amrachem ki lo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach. Ve'al Sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha. Sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Barcheinu avinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha. Ki be'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu. Sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Torah chaim ve'avat chesed ve'avat chesed u'tzedakah uvracha ve'rachamim ve'chayim ve'shalom. Sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Etov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael v'chol eit u'v'chol shah b'shlomecha. Sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Ohosei shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael yaseh shalom shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael.
Thank you, Ben. Many of us are back here. Oh, Sue, did you mean to raise your hand? No. Okay. So we'll continue all together with Kaddish Shalem, page 203. Yikara v'ikara shemei rabba, be'alma dibrachirte v'yamlich machute, b'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayetecho beit Yisrael, v'galav izman kari v'meru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, le'yalam ulo me'almaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'itbar v'itman v'itnaseh, v'itadar v'itale v'italash v'idikudisha, frihu. Leila Miko Birchata Bashirata Tishbachata Benechamata Damiran Biama Vimeru Amen Tikabal Flot Hon Vat Hon Dechol Yisrael Kodama Vohon Divishmaya Vimeru Amen Yehesh Lamarap Mit Shemaya Vachayim Aleinu Virako Yisrael Vimeru Amen Ose Shalom Bimromav Uyase Shalom Aleinu Virako Yisrael Virako Yoshvei Tevel Vimeru Amen. Run 204. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Gimakenu, Ein Kamoshienu. Non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey, non como nuestro Salvador. Mi Eloheinu, mi Adonenu, mi Malkeinu, mi Moshienu. ¿Quién como nuestro Dios? ¿Quién como nuestro Señor? ¿Quién como nuestro Rey? ¿Quién como nuestro Salvador? No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Lo oremos a nuestro Dios, lo oremos a nuestro Señor, lo oremos a nuestro Rey, lo oremos a nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Eloi Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Bendito nuestro Dios, bendito nuestro Señor, bendito nuestro Rey, bendito nuestro Salvador. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Tú a nuestro Dios, tú a nuestro Señor, tú a nuestro Rey, tú a nuestro Salvador. Atahu Shektiru, Avotenu, Lipanecha Ketoret Hasamim, Yanadadanaidai, 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 Yanadadanaidai. Alinu l'shabeach ladon hakol lateikdu lea liotzer breshit shelo asanu kigoye haratzot velo samanu kimishbechot hadama shelo sam chalkenu kahem v'gur aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ ומשה ביקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו אינו Emet makenu afasulato, kakatu vieto torato, viadatayom behashivota elevavecha. Ki Adonai hu Elohim, Hashemayim mimal, v'yaharetz mitachat Eino. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo
Shemo Echa. You can be seated. Turning now to Mourner's Kaddish. We're sending our love and all of our comfort and all of our prayers to Rita Morocco, the loss of her beloved sister, Teddy Haber, and to Naomi Vanenfeld on the loss of her mother, Devorah Moran. We're also remembering the Shabbos, the yard sites of Abraham Applebaum, Tilly Cohen Axelrod, Marty Warner Buchalter, Ruth Rosheim Kaplan, Julia Citron, Manya Bat Eliyahu, Frida Fink, Alfred Gary, Dennis Gelb, Helen Hovitz, Fritz Algenfritz, Lori Kremer Immergluck, Ronnie Camp, Hannah Katzen, Sadie Leibowitz, Harry Lefkoff, Jeanette Levis, Joanne Levy, Emil Lewis, Perry Lipkin, Elaine Marcus, Ann Moss, Lou Pascal, Frederick Pilzer, Matthew Roth, Gail Rubin, Alma Schloss, Iris Siekel, Anita F. Seidman, Molly Schron, Diane Schulman, and Lawrence Schuster. There are other names that you're remembering on their yard sites or in mourning, and share them with us in the chat, as I see others already have. Yehi zichronam livracha. May all of their memories be blessings to us. Join me in Kaddish, page 207. Yit gadal v'yit kadash me'e rabba. Ve'alma dikra yerushe ve'amlit malchutei. V'chayechon u'yom echon v'chaye t'chomei Yisrael. V'adala u'b'zman kevid Amen, amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Really grateful that you spent the morning here with us, studying and singing. And I'm gonna turn it to Gail now to share announcements with us.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this morning. It was a really wonderful service, and I love how there's so much participation from our members to bring it all together. And I get a special shout out to the Nather family that had two participants. You had with Miriam reading so beautifully and with Ben doing Musaf. So a special extra thank you to the Nathers this morning. As you all know, this weekend will be culminating tonight with Rabbi Lauren's installation with her Brit Kehillah at 7 p.m. So I, of course, encourage all of you to come back and join us then. Bring your Havdalah candle, as the evening will begin with that as we transition out of Shabbat into the week. Just at the same time, we'll be transitioning with Rabbi Lauren into being our spiritual leader in a little bit more formal way. So I'm excited for all of you to be participating tonight in that. Just one other thing happening this weekend is tomorrow night, the Men's Club is having an event on about everything you want to know about vaccines. It's going to be led by one of our members, Dr. Amanda Cohen, who is at the CDC, and this is her area of expertise. So I know some of you have been getting your vaccines. Some of you are wondering when you're going to get them. Some of you are wondering how long they last and all the particulars of it. So if you join tomorrow night at 7:30, she will have the answers to all of your questions. And that link will be on the link is on the website. And with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to seeing you all tonight.
Thanks, Gail. I also just want to say, I think she had to leave, but a thank you to Rabbi Ariel for sharing her beautiful music earlier in this service, and a special thank you to Rabbi Ellen and to Jeff. We did a little guided meditation, Musaf meditation, and I said at the end, it really brought everything together for me in this idea of Shirat Hayam, thinking about the words that we add into this song and how we continue to sing those words day after day after day. So this is something I'm hoping to do from time to time to give people multiple ways to connect to prayer and connect to Musaf at the end of the service. So I hope that we'll do this again, but thank you so much. My head is spinning. There's so much happening, but we're going to sing a Don Olam, we're going to make Kiddush, and then we're going to schmooze for those of you who want to stick around. So page 211. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nira Le'it Nasa V'chatzot Kol Azayim Melech Shemo Nikra V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol Livado Yimloch Nora V'hu Hayah Vehu yeh betifarai vehu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshilo lehachbira veli reishit veli tachlit velo ha'oz ve'hamisra vehu eli v'chai go'ali v'tzor chavli v'yitzara vehu nisi umanos li narkosi ve'yom ekra ay ve'yado afkir ruchi ve'yedishan ve'ya'ira Vehimruchi gaviyati Adonai li velo ira. Grab your kiddush, wine, grape juice, scotch, whiskey, beverage of choice. Join me. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael hashabat la'asot et hashabat l'dorotam b'rit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam hi sheshet yamim asad Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz u'v'yom hashvi shabat vayinachash zachor et yom hashabat lekadsho sheshet yamim tavot v'asita kol melachtecha v'yom hashvi shabat l'Adonai Elohecha lo taseh kol melacha ata uvincha uvitcha avtecha v'ametecha ובהמתך וגרך אשר בשעריך. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים וכל אשר בם, וינח ביום השביעי. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו סברי. אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
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 Fine.
Shabbat shalom.
Think of that.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Eileen's there.
Yes, Eileen, it's nice to see you. Yes.
Yes,
Thank
Eileen.
Nice to see your name.
Yeah, at least her name, right?
Eileen did too.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
It's
shalom.
nice to
Shabbat
see
shalom.
all of you in the sort of flesh, maybe
The two-dimensional.
virtual.
I'm turning 11 in about 2 days.
I was gonna say, you have a birthday coming up.
All right.
Yeah.
11?
Yeah.
Wow.
So big.
Happy birthday.
And
Happy birthday,
means,
Fiona.
that means your birthday is the day before Harvey's birthday?
Harvey's also turning 11 this week.
Yeah.
How many
Happy
times?
birthday, Jonah.
7.5 time.
I have to show you guys this little Kiddush cup I found. It belongs to my great-great-grandfather.
Oh, wow.
And this is what he used to drink schnapps from.
That ought to be pretty well-aged scotch. now.
Yes, yes.
Is your mom there, Lauren, Rabbi Lauren?
She is. She's
Hello, Nancy.
Robin says Shabbat Shalom. She can see you on the screen, but she's staying off camera. Just here tonight.
Ann Davis, how did you get the heads on the sticks behind you?
I did a screenshot from the website and then I put it on, but I can send it to you.
We still have the heads on the sticks somewhere?
There's a few of them. Yes, I know. It sounds like we've like impaled people.
We posted them outside of the perimeter of the synagogue as a warning to those who would do us harm.
I wanted, hi. I wanted to
get
share a memory of this song for song. Sorry, I'm not showing you my picture because I'll be dressed better tonight.
That's fine.
But when I opened the paper this morning, it said that on this day, Coretta Scott King passed away. And it made me remember one time she asked me to introduce her when she was giving her State of the King Center. And I introduced it with the Song of Miriam and the idea of leading the people to freedom out of troubled waters. And Mrs. King was a music scholar. And I said she led her people with song towards more righteousness, more freedom, more justice. And the juxtaposition of thinking that Jews all over the world were reading the Song of Miriam today. And that memory also about, the constant song and hope for freedom just came to mind.
That's beautiful, Sherry. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And I shared in the chat this thing from the Jewish Book of Days about today's reading. It really was very much connected to the Shirat Hayam today. It was perfect. So I shared it in the chat.
Robin, I'm gonna go make sure we put some bird seed out today. That was
That was so new okay, so who knew that there's a connection of feeding birds on this Shabbos? Because Robin, do you want to say a little more about just what the link was?
Well, I just copied the reading from today's that you turned me on to.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Hammer's book, The Jewish Book of Days, A Companion for All Seasons. You turned me on to this, Rabbi Lauren, and it was really fascinating today when I read that earlier today about when they walked across the sea on dry land, and the kid was hungry and he pulled a fruit from a tree, and then there were also about feeding birds, and there's just so much in there. It was really quite connecting. I was thinking about that when Ellen was doing her meditation, because it really connected me to that.
I love that the seawaters could be nourishing in this way, and there's fruit growing from their sides. I think the connection was something like, well, if we know that there was food and sustenance provided for us in the desert, all the more so going through the depths of the water. If the desert was called depths, then this is depths too. So we have to be provided for too going through this passage.
And it was fascinating because it mentioned Deborah Ornstein, and her dad was the rabbi at my congregation that I grew up in. And it's it's so nice to see her name there. It's such a nice connection too.
Well, during that meditation, I kept thinking about the fish and the other little sea creatures. Were they just flapping around on the left and on the right?
Imagine, like, has anyone even been to like an aquarium? I think the aquarium here, the Georgia Aquarium, you walk through and you can go through that tunnel of water where the fish are swimming on top of you. And
That's a great thing, Stacy. I never thought of that, but there's a great movie out.
Flapping around, walking by.
Have you seen my octopus teacher? Have you seen my octopus teacher? It's on Netflix. It's fabulous.
Yes,
Octopus
yes,
teacher?
I did.
You mentioned last night that it was Debbie Friedman's yard site. It's interesting. It's on the special reading on Thursday night. UAHC did a 2-hour concert with all of her music. It was amazing.
It was
and
beautiful.
we all want you to sing the well.
do you really? Because we will.
I love it.
Love.
Oh, the water in the well and the healing in the well, the women and the water and the hope that's in the well. Oh, the water in the well, oh, the healing in the well, the women and the water and the hope that's in the well.
I love it.
A number of other random nouns in for.
Oh yeah, and then she has this part that I just love. It goes like this. It's gonna be too much. Spring up, oh well, and sing ye unto it. She's like calling the well, come forth. It's so good.
Oh.
The amount of her music is just unbelievable.
Very prolific. Very. Okay, that was good.
I'm glad you had that.
There's many words. It's like in a weird time signature
Yeah, it's
too.
in a 9/8 time signature.
So it like has like a funky rhythm. Yeah, it's worth.
See everybody tonight. I'm gonna go
See you
eat.
tonight.
Yeah, we'll see y'all tonight.
Enjoy your afternoon. Hope you enjoyed your dinners last night.
Yeah, that was a good idea. Really enjoyed that.
It was lovely.
All right. Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
shalom.
Mwah.
Shabbat shalom.